Today I will be discussing the effects of reinforcement. Positive reinforcement in drugs. Positive reinforcement plays a crucial role in the effects of drugs. Drugs have reinforcing effects, meaning they can encourage repeated use. The route of administration, such as oral or inhalation, impacts the abuse potential. Additionally, cognition, including how we associate stimuli with reinforcing properties and our expectations, play a significant role in this process. Neural mechanisms. As you can see right here, we have the picture of the dopamine pathway going through the brain. Addictive drugs trigger the release of dopamine in the nucleus. Each drug stimulates dopamine release in unique ways. These neural changes begin in the ventral tegmental area, or VTA, strengthening synapses on dopamine neurons. This process is essential in understanding how addiction develops. Dopamine pathways. Neural changes follow a dorsally cascading set of reciprocal connections between the striatum and the VTA. Neurons in the ventral NAC project to the VTA, which sends dopaminergic projections back to more dorsal region of the NAC. This back and forth communication continues, eventually connecting to the caudate nucleus and putamen, highlighting the complexity of the addiction pathways. And as you can see here, we have the picture of the brain with the different parts highlighted, like the spinal cord, the pituitary gland, the putamen, as I mentioned earlier, the hypothalamus from the last picture, and a couple other words from this chapter, like the nucleus accumbens and the cerebellum. Control of compulsive and addictive behavior. The control of compulsive addictive behavior involves interactions between the ventral and the dorsal striatum, mediated by the dopaminergic connections with the VTA. Bilateral infusions of a dopamine antagonist showed repression of compulsive behavior, whereas unilateral infusions had no effect. This finding emphasizes the bilateral nature of these neural pathways. Dopamine receptors. So here we have a diagram that is showing how the dopamine is transferred and how it increases in D1 and decreases in D2. These are the role of the ACH interneurons. Regarding dopamine receptors, there's an increase in D1 and a decrease in D2 in addicted individuals. The ACH interneurons also play a role in this process. Understanding these changes is crucial for the developing treatments for addiction. And next we have the role of the prefrontal cortex. And some of the labels we have for it is the limbic lobe, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the cerebellum. The prefrontal cortex is significantly involved in addiction, particularly during adolescence and in individuals with a history of substance abuse. Structural abnormalities in this area can contribute to addictive behaviors, highlighting the importance of early intervention and prevention strategies. And what this is basically saying is the addiction of drugs all starts in your head, of course. And a good way to stop it or prevent it would be getting your prefrontal cortex evaluated. Genetic and environmental factors. So everyone isn't as likely to be as addicted to drugs. There are both genetic and environmental factors that play a part, along with general and specific factors. Like how we have this diagram here of Jennifer and Karen, identical twins born with genes that absorb fats twice as fast as the average person. As the next step in the diagram goes, we see that one twin is eating healthy, low fat food, and the other twin is eating fatty, unhealthy food. This in turn would have the effect on one of them to get bigger and one to stay more so of the same size because of what is environmentally going on, what they're specifically putting in their bodies. It has a output on your outer body. For instance, abusing one category of drugs is often associated with abusing drugs in other categories. This knowledge can help us identify at-risk individuals and develop targeted prevention strategies. Opiates. Opiates like heroin have severe consequences. Heroin is illegal in most countries, and users often engage in criminal activity to sustain their addiction. Additionally, a significant percentage of people who inject drugs are exposed to hepatitis or AIDS viruses. Pregnant addicts, infants can also become dependent on the drug as it easily crosses the placental barrier. Now, while heroin is illegal in most countries, most addicts will end up turning to crime to get them. Most addicts for whatever drug it may be will definitely take that risk in doing what they need to do to get their fix. Next, we have cocaine and amphetamines. Cocaine and amphetamines have similar behavioral effects, and they are as potent as dopamine agonists, but their sites of action differ. Cocaine, for example, binds with and deactivates dopamine transporter proteins, blocking the reuptake of dopamine after it is released by the terminal buttons. These mechanisms contribute to their highly addictive nature. Nicotine and alcohol. Nicotine stimulates the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, increasing the activity of the dopaminergic mesolimbic system. This reinforcement is further demonstrated by experiments where a nicotinic agonist into the VTA reinforces conditioned place preference. Alcohol at low doses produces mild euphoria, but higher doses lead to incoordination and sedation. Both positive and negative reinforcement play roles in alcohol addiction. So, an example of a low dose would be liquid confidence, is what some people may call alcohol, just to ease their nerves and to get a little anxiety down so that you can have a conversation. But then taking it in high doses would have you getting pulled over, performing a sobriety test with the police. And here go my references. And just to conclude everything, we've explored reinforcing the we've explored reinforcing the effects of drugs, the neural mechanisms underlying addiction, and the impact of specific substances like opiates, cocaine, and alcohol. Understanding these processes is crucial for developing an effective prevention and treatment strategies for addiction. Thank you.